Ready to go?
Yes. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Strategic Emotional Urgent Care, How to Calm Down Fast When Politics Stresses You Out. I'm Dr. Karen Tamarius, and I'm joined today by Locke Petersheim. Just to tell you a bit about myself, I'm the founder of Smart Politics, and I'm a political psychiatrist. What that means is that I'm trained both in political science and political psychology, and I'm a medical doctor who's trained in psychiatry and psychotherapy. I combine both of those skill sets to help people have more effective conversations about politics. And one of the things I've learned along the way is that a major stumbling block for progressives who are involved in politics is their emotions. We get really upset because we are passionate about political outcomes. And learning to regulate our emotional systems is really important for being effective. Joining me today is Locke Petersheim, who's the content manager for Smart Politics, and he'll be monitoring our chat. And you're welcome to put chat's questions into the Q&A or, comment and discuss with one another as this webinar proceeds. And he'll bring those to my attention if there are things that you would really like to know that I haven't addressed. So let's begin by defining the problem. The first thing everybody needs to know is that 50% of activists eventually burn out and withdraw from politics permanently. That is a huge loss to the progressive movement. We need to find a way to keep people engaged. We need to find a way to keep people from burning out. And I found this quote from a student in the Stanford Daily that I thought was really, really hit things on the nose. And she said, one of the first pieces of advice I was given when I started organizing is that you can't pour from an empty cup. Far too often, activists wait until their cup is empty with no way to refill it. And this really captures the problem that we're facing, because a lot of times activists are told all kinds of things about what we need to do to be effective. We need to contact people. We need to network. We need to protest. We need to use social media. But we aren't taught anything about how to engage in self-care, particularly in those moments when we most need it and over the long term. So today I'd like to talk about what it takes to engage in good emotional self-care. And this isn't just about avoiding burnout. It's also about being politically strategic. Because if you think about it, being calm and centered when you're engaging in political activism accomplishes a number of important goals. For one thing, it makes it possible for you to think clearly. If you're in a state of fight or flight, you can't think clearly or make good decisions. You can't act strategically. In fact, you're likely to behave highly impulsively and in a reactive way rather than a way that's thoroughly thought out in advance. You can't communicate effectively. When you're in a heightened state of arousal, it's very hard to find good words for communicating. It's hard to be persuasive. It's especially hard to reach people who disagree with you. And finally, when you are in a state of hyperarousal, when you are in fight or flight, you can't calm the people around you. And what we need in our political movement is a sense of calm throughout all of the people who are organizing. And if you're going to be a leader, you need to be at the center of that. So what is the solution? Today, I'm going to present three solutions, but they all fall under one basic umbrella, one basic idea, which is that we need to train emotionally for the resistance with the same discipline that soldiers prepare physically for war. We can't just be running out there and engaging in activities without thinking about the emotional cost, without training for the emotional consequences of the actions that we're taking. There are three techniques I'm going to teach you today for calming down quickly. The first is box breathing. It's a technique that's used actually by the military for soldiers that they use in combat to calm down in very stressful situations. The second is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding. It's a technique that's used by primarily by psychotherapists to help people who are on the brink of having panic attacks. And the third is naming your emotions, which is a really great technique that psychotherapists also use in situations where people tend to get into worrying loops rather than thinking constructively about situations. So I'm going to go through each of these systematically. I'm going to tell you why it works. And then we're actually going to do an exercise so you can practice each one separately. So the first technique is box breathing. It's actually pretty simple. All you do is breathe in for a count of 4, hold your breath for a count of 4, breathe out for a count of 4, and hold your breath for a count of 4. Like I said, really simple. And you just repeat this until you feel calmer. Usually it's about 3 to 5 times, and you're going to notice an incredible difference in your stress level. Now, here's why it works. Your central nervous system is divided up into two primary parts, the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is that part of your nervous system that you associate with fight or flight. It's the part that raises your blood pressure, raises your heart rate, makes you sweat, gets you into a state to fight back or run away when you are in a situation that really stresses you out. The parasympathetic nervous system is basically the opposite. It acts like a brake. It slows everything down. And what's beautiful about this is that you can actually activate the parasympathetic nervous system by choice. And that's what box breathing does. It helps you activate that brake, the parasympathetic nervous system, so you can slow everything down. By slowing down your breathing, you slow down your heart rate, you lower your blood pressure, you slow down your you lower your other aspects, you lower your cortisol. All of these aspects of your stress response become minimized, and you're able to go into a much calmer state. So, what we're going to do now is we're going to practice box breathing together. Remember, it's 4 breaths in, breathing in for a count of 4, hold for a count of 4, breathe out for a count of 4, and then hold for a count of 4, and then repeat. Now, in order to do this, I'm going to show you a trigger, something that you encounter every day in your political life, but something that I guarantee you don't like looking at. So brace yourself because you're going to see it now. But we're doing this so that you have a way to see how this actually works. Ready? Okay, here we go. All right, I know. It's hard to look at this picture, and I apologize for showing it to you. But this is a great opportunity to practice. So while you're looking at the picture, I want you to take a deep breath in to the count of 4. Now hold to a count of 4. Now exhale to a count of 4. And hold for a count of 4. Repeat that on your own a few more times. Now, hopefully, you should be feeling a little calmer now. Even if the picture didn't trigger you a lot, you should be feeling calmer than you were at the start of this webinar. And I have to tell you, I feel calmer than I did at the start of this webinar because teaching a webinar always makes me a little nervous. So this is a great technique. It works with political triggers, and it also works basically with any trigger you encounter in your daily life. And actually, all of the techniques I'm going to teach you today are great for life in general, but I'm trying to get you to think about them, particularly in the context of politics, because we so rarely think about these things in that place. So next up, our second technique, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding. So this one is a little bit different. It involves 5 steps. The first thing is that you are going to look around yourself, wherever you find yourself. Right now, you're probably sitting at a computer and watching this video. So you could look around the room where you're sitting and identify 5 different things you can see that are blue. Next, you're going to feel 4 different things that you can touch. So when you're sitting down, it might be something like, well, I'm at a computer, so I can feel the keyboard beneath my fingers, or I can feel the chair beneath my rear end. Then you will listen for 3 things. Identify 3 different sounds that you can hear. You might hear cars in the background, or you might hear an air conditioner running, or you might hear the sound of rain pattering. You might hear the sound of your keyboard clattering under your fingers. The second or the fourth thing is smell, and you try to smell 2 things. This one's hard. You may have to sit there a minute to actually pick up on it. Sometimes I keep things handy, like around my desk, in order to take advantage of this. So, or carry things with me while I'm out in the world. So, having lip gloss that has a scent to it, or a perfume, or a scented candle. These are things that you can reach for and smell to make sure that you really have 2 scents available. And the final one is taste. Often, if you just think about the taste in your mouth, you still have some residual flavor from the last thing you ate, or you can take a sip of whatever you have handy to drink, and you can think about that. So going through this is incredibly simple. The trick is you have to pay attention and think through all these different senses. Now, why does it work? The reason is because you can't pay attention to a lot of sensory input and be emotional at the same time. Identifying and counting a variety of sensations forces you to pay attention to what's happening in the moment rather than panicking about whatever is causing you stress and anxiety. So, we're going to do another example. This one is going to be a bit more challenging. I'm not going to show you a picture. I'm going to show you a video. It's about 2 minutes long. I want you to hang in there with me. I promise you it's a video that you've seen out in the world, at least on the news. These are things that are happening everywhere. So hang in there. I will talk you through the exercise at the end of the video. Okay.
Give us your name. Identify yourself.
This is video a bystander captured of a federal agent trying to pry a woman, identified as Selena Vanessa Hernandez Ramirez, off a tree. Ramirez had been selling food outside a Home Depot in West Los Angeles just moments prior. CNN has blurred bystanders in the video at the request of Aleka LeBlanc, who filmed the footage and was fearful they could face retaliation. LeBlanc tells CNN she was running errands when she saw there were Immigration and Customs Enforcement raids targeting day laborers at a local Home Depot, so she headed to another Home Depot nearby. Shortly after she arrived, LeBlanc spotted a man in street clothes chasing a woman and began recording.
I've seen basically an old man chasing a young lady down the street, which is horrifying, and she's running out of fear.
Don't answer any questions. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to answer any questions. What's your name? Let me see your ID.
The older gentleman, you can see in the video, like I could see he was like trying to like pry her off of the tree.
What you're doing is kidnapping. What you're doing is kidnapping.
What the is wrong with you? Get the back! Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
There were just a lot of elements to this that didn't feel official, didn't feel right. Like I think that they saw a woman that looked like she was an immigrant and decided to chase her. It felt very random.
Tu nombre y tu cumpleaños. Tu nombre y tu cumpleaños.
After the incident, LeBlanc filed a report with the local sheriff.
It's pathetic.
According to the ICE website, Ramirez is in ICE custody, but it does not specify where she is being held. In a statement to CNN, Department of Homeland Security Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin states, during operations on June 23, CBP encountered Selena Vanessa Hernandez Ramirez, an illegal alien from El Salvador, for being unlawfully present in the United States. Despite verbal harassment by members of the public, the officers ultimately detained this illegal alien and placed her under arrest.
Whew, okay. That I've watched this several times now, and it's still really hard to watch. So now is a good time to restabilize ourselves emotionally. So remember what we're going to do. We're doing 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding. So the first thing I want you to do is look around you wherever you are right now and find 5 things that are blue. I'm going to do it with you. Okay, I've done it. Usually that's about how long it takes. Might take a little longer. So now we're going to look for 4 things that you can feel or touch. So they can be things you're touching already or things you want to reach out and touch right now. I notice I'm touching the floor beneath my feet. I can feel my hand on the mouse for my computer. I feel a ring on my finger. I I can touch my can for my beverage. So hopefully you found 4 things that you can touch. And now you're going to listen for 3 sounds. And sometimes, depending on where you are, this can be hard. Or if you're like me, you're a little hard of hearing. One thing that you can count right now is my voice. You should be able to hear that. I can hear my finger tapping on my desk, and I can feel my foot, I can hear my foot moving around on the floor. So those are things. I'm not hearing any outdoor sounds right now, but hopefully you can hear some other things. Now, 2 things that you can smell. So take deep inhalation. I have a candle here, so I have an advantage. Nice. I like that scent a lot. And I also have, I think I have a pen that has a scent to it. Not a good one, kind of a chemical-y scent. All right, 2 scents. And finally, a taste. So think about the taste in your mouth currently. Maybe it's the taste of leftover coffee or tea. I have some La Croix soda, kind of a diluted lemon lime flavor. So now that we have gone through that, you should be feeling a lot more centered. I know I am. I'm feeling a lot more centered. It's not that I am not aware that we've just watched this really horrible video, and that the video was very upsetting, but I am not in a destabilized state. I am in a place where now I can theoretically do something about this. I can work with other people. I can network. And that's what's really important. It's about getting yourself to a place where you can continue doing this work effectively over the long haul.
Give us your name.
Oh, no.
Identify yourself.
Stop that.
This is
All right.
video a bystander captured.
Okay, next. Let's move on to technique number 3. This one requires a little more cognitive work and might be hard for some people who aren't accustomed to thinking in emotional terms. So this one is naming your emotions, and it basically involves identifying what you're feeling and writing your feelings down. So naming each of your emotions rather than just feeling them or experiencing them or acting on them. And it can be as simple as I'm feeling sad or I am feeling angry. The more descriptive the emotion the more descriptive your naming, the more effective it will be. So rather than just saying I am sad, if you can say something like I am grief-stricken about the state of our country, that's probably going to be more effective. Another way to do this that will make it more effective often is to do it out loud with other people rather than just entirely by yourself. So why does this work? Naming your emotions engages the rational part of the brain, in particular the prefrontal cortex, which is really that part of our brain that handles executive function and impulse control. And when we're in a really emotional state, the executive function tends to go offline and the emotional part takes over. By naming our emotions, we engage the executive portion, and it takes the reins from the emotional part of the brain, and that helps you shift from an emotional state to a more logical state of mind. So we're going to do this. And this time, I'd really like you to actually use the chat specifically to write down the emotions that you have during this video and after the video. So if emotions are coming up, go ahead, put them in the chat, and then we can kind of look at them and see if people are having the same feelings, if some people have a much broader range of feelings. I find this is a really good exercise for people who aren't used to thinking about what they're feeling and naming it. This is another video.
It has been just 100 days.
I was saved by God to make America great again.
A presidency like no other. Norms upended.
The chainsaw for bureaucracy.
Allies shocked.
Canada is going to be a very serious contender to be our 51st state. We need Greenland for national security.
And shafted.
You're gambling with World War III.
Moments no one predicted.
Trump Gaza, #1.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip. We'll own it.
And the tariffs.
I'd like to see the chart if you have it.
Everyone predicted them, but it didn't soften the blow.
China, first row.
Until he U-turned.
They were getting yippy, you know?
Migrants removed, with court-defying deportations. In every way, for the delighted and the disgusted, this has been a truly consequential 3 months. And he will mark it here later today, a rally on the edge of Detroit, the Motor City in Michigan, the battleground state which helped to propel him back to the White House. To fix America, Donald Trump first needed to convince people that it's broken, and many did not need convincing. Look for decline here, and you will find it easily. Communities left behind. Look for bureaucracy and waste. You will find that too. Common sense silenced by wokeism. Many can relate to that. Immigration out of control. Well, politicians have been struggling with that for decades. And in just 100 days, Donald Trump has harnessed all of that into a package of change that feels like nothing short of a revolution. At a park on the banks of the Detroit River, the scorecards reflect the enduring divide.
Give him a 10.
I would say 10 too. I mean, he's human, he's doing his best.
Oh, 0. If I could do lower than 0, lower.
We're all so angry because we're under angry leadership, and that's not good.
The polling 100 days in tells the bigger picture, because with a 40% approval rating, it's lower than any president in over 70 years. And yet the Democrats are doing no better either. Down the road from the president's rally, hopes and fears at the Detroiter bar.
He's helping the middle class of the country.
Sounds like he's convinced you.
Yeah. He convinced me the first time.
I'm a cook, and I got 2 kids to provide for. But this right now, it's bad. It's real bad.
You sound really worried.
I am. I'm a citizen. I was born in America, so yeah, I am really worried.
Of one fact, there is no debate. After just 100 days, he is proving to be a leader of profound global consequence. Mark Stone, Sky News in Michigan.
Okay. So, Locke, Can you read back some of the comments that are in the chat? And maybe people, if you didn't get a chance to comment up to this point, you can put your feelings after watching that.
Anger, frustration, sadness, exhausted, bewildered, and disgust.
Yeah. So I'm curious whether you are experiencing it is helpful to put those feelings into words. Maybe people can add in the chat. I know we can't really call on people. Breathing has been helpful. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes when these things come up, you know, and you're watching the news or reading the newspaper, it helps to put all three of these techniques into action simultaneously. Like you can first do the breathing exercise, then you can do a little grounding, and then you can sit there and be like, okay, what are the feelings that are really coming up for me right now? Let's put this into words so I can process it more effectively.
Yeah, I
also,
think that in the order that you listed that you've been teaching them, I always think of like the box breathing as almost like a rescue inhaler. Like that's immediate. Like I need right now in the next 30 seconds, I've got to calm down. Box breathing. And then the detecting senses takes a little longer. That can take a few minutes, but it's kind of easing into it. And then the naming is more of an, I don't want to say audit, but taking an assessment. So in that order, like for me, immediate box breathing. That's like, I got to push a button and calm down. Do that now.
Yeah. And really, like the more advanced version of naming your emotions is journaling, right? Like you go beyond just making a list of, okay, these are the feelings I'm having, to actually taking some time to write about the experience. If you can go into like the physical manifestations of that, you know, I get nauseated. I have a pit in the bottom of my stomach. All my muscles tighten up. Like processing all of those aspects and what it is that's really driving those feelings, what you're reacting to, that's going to make it easier over the long term to handle it, and it's going to help you calm down. Any other things that are coming up in the comments I should know about, Locke?
Yeah, a couple folks, Eric and Kelly, are agreeing that naming them doesn't calm them down, but it keeps them from spinning out more.
Okay. And that's really important, actually, because a lot of times what we get lost in are these cycles of catastrophizing and thinking about, oh no, what's going to happen next, or this is like so horrible, and you know, if this happened, you know, maybe this other horrible thing is going to happen. And it is kind of a circuit breaker on that, to be like, okay, you know, I am feeling these bad feelings. And one of the things I try to remind people about is that, you know, emotions can be really, really uncomfortable, really unpleasant. Some emotions are more awful than physical pain, but they aren't going to kill you, right? They will pass eventually. they tend to be like waves. They peak, they crest, and then over time they get better. And so if you spend some time writing about them and let a little time pass, you're going to come out on the other side, and you're going to be okay.
Yeah, I think that kind of to follow up on what folks are saying about, oh, maybe the naming doesn't exactly calm me down. I find that, in the past 6-9 months, the thing that calms me down the most is doing work. So when I'm working on a smart politics project or writing or hosting a call or something, that's when I really calm down, which gets to the whole point of this webinar, which is before I can do that, though, I need to settle my emotions down, kind of get out of my head, get away from the catastrophizing or the despair, in order to get myself grounded enough to do whatever small tasks I have to do that day in terms of political activism or political communication.
Right.
And then that is really the tonic that keeps me going, is doing the work. But I can't do the work if I'm spun out.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Excellent point. You don't want to be one of those 50% of people who burn out and can't do the work. Yeah. All right. So let's move on.
It has been just 100 days.
Sorry, guys.
I was saved by God to.
All right. So we've covered those 3 techniques, right? We've covered the box breathing, the 5-3-2-1 grounding, and we've covered the naming your emotions. These are urgent care techniques, and I want you to keep in mind that this is just the first step in emotion management. There are all kinds of other things you need to be doing in order to build your long-term resilience. And Locke and I are going to be teaching another webinar live in New Orleans, and on the 7th, I think, where we're going to do a deep dive into that. Because as I said before, activism requires this kind of dedicated emotional training. And you're going to need daily practices that are going to build your emotional resilience over the long term. Now, here's the good news. Between now and August 7th, we have a free copy for you of my ebook, or it's actually a PDF that covers all of this stuff. It covers the stuff that I talked about today. It covers the stuff I'm going to be teaching in New Orleans, and it also covers a bunch of other stuff that isn't covered in these workshops. And I think Eric that is going to put it in the somewhere in the chat for you guys, so you can download it. It's also on the Netroots app, and we have a QR code here to make it easy for you. First, I'm going to show you this. So it's called Keep Calm and Carry On, Saving Democracy the Smart Politics Way. And if you scan the QR code, you'll go directly to a page where you can download it. Like I said, totally free. And you can share it with your friends or whatever. I don't care. What I want is for this to get out to as many people as possible, because it's really important for folks to be using and learning these skills. And then, so I'll give you a minute so you can scan that. Sorry, I tend to show these things really fast. Okay. All right. And then, for those of you who are just interested in learning more about what Locke and I do, we're from Smart Politics. Smart Politics is an organization that basically teaches progressives how to communicate more productively and effectively with people we disagree with. And that includes our fellow progressives. It includes MAGA voters. It includes your friends and family. It includes people on, in campaigns. We cover the whole gamut of persuasive communication through conversation. We're not huge fans of messaging. We're huge fans of actual dialogue. And we can teach you how to do that in a way that actually changes minds. So that's at joinsmart.org. And I also have a Substack where I write about this stuff every week. And you're welcome to check that out too. So
the Substack is called The Smart Politics Way.
Yeah.
If you go searching for it.
Right. So folks, do you have any questions? Did anything pop up in the Q&A, Locke? Things that weren't clear or
not yet,
wanted a deeper dive?
Yeah, but right now is a good time if you have questions about anything that Karen said today, or about Smart Politics and what we do, or about what we're going to be doing in New Orleans. Eric made the point of, wait, you're telling me progressives can disagree with each other? I will say that one of the I've been working with Karen now for 5 years, and one of the fascinating things is just watching Smart Politics, I don't want to say mutate, but evolve, because a lot of the stuff that we're doing this year is not what we were doing 5 years ago, because you pick up on, hey, wait, we need to spend more time talking to other progressives because we've got some friction on that side. Or as Karen said at the start, really, we needed to spend a lot of time this winter and on into the spring and the summer dealing with, you first have to get your emotions in line. That sounds a little prescriptive, but you need to manage your emotions before you can start to have a conversation, because you can guarantee the videos that Karen showed today, if you get into a conversation with, say, a Trump supporter or someone who on the progressive side who has very different opinions about things, you're going to get triggered. You're going to hear things that make you go, what? And, so the emotions part has turned out to be the big thing that we really have been focusing on this year.
All right, I'm going to take advantage and just go ahead and add myself to the stage here. And Kelly, I agree, but I was popping in to say that I've been doing this now for a long time, professionally for the last 12 years now. And there does seem to be, within the sort of progressive movement, a little more cohesion than I've seen recently. The No Kings protest was one of the first times I've been at one where it didn't matter that there were people who were protesting what's going in Gaza or whatever else, but no one was yelling at each other. Everyone was sharing water. It does seem to be a moment where, we're getting along, and hopefully we can continue to do that and have some positive change about it. But I have had some conversations with non-political people for the first time about how they're feeling and how they feel overwhelmed, even though they're not in politics, but just in their daily lives. And one of the things, like my mother, who's a 83-year-old progressive, who's always had a lot of feelings, says, it just feels different. I don't know how to keep going. I don't know how to get up and do the next thing. I say, Mom, you're also a fairly well-off white lady. There are people in this country who have had these feelings thrust at them for generations now, and they manage to get up and keep doing. I'm not saying that they should teach you how to do this, but maybe look to them and their movements and the folks in the communities of color and our LGBT brothers and sisters, and see how they do it. It's mixing in laughter with the fear, and just getting up and doing it again, because that's what we have to do.
Exactly.
Yes, that is so true.
Yeah.
And that is a conversation we have a lot with folks when we talk about, particularly when we talk about smart politics, because we find a lot of resistance to the idea of dialogue with people we disagree with. Not necessarily like dialogue with people on the left that we disagree with, but with people on the right that we disagree with. And one of the points that we often make is that if you are a person of high privilege, if you are a person who is white and high socioeconomic status, like, you have the ability to actually have those conversations, to have an impact, and to opt out of them is kind of an act of privilege on our part. Like if we don't do the work, we're not the ones who are going to suffer the consequences of that. And so, yeah, it's really important to keep in mind who's that people of marginalized status have been doing the work forever. And now it's starting to get really hard for us too, and we need to step up.
Michael has a question about maybe some tools for, especially if you're a work-at-home person. Would you recommend some of the things like stress balls or meditation fountains?
Yes. I always recommend whatever works for you. The techniques I teach are techniques that are, really common and that have been proven, have been researched and proven to be effective in a wide variety of stressful situations for a wide variety of people. But if you find something that works for you and calms you down, go for it. And the one thing I would urge you to keep in mind is the distinction between those things that are helping you calm down in the moment and the things that are helping you build your resilience long term. The things we're talking about today are those that help you calm down in the moment. Long term are going to be things like meditation and learning how to set really good boundaries, and working on one of the things I talk about next in a few weeks is exposure therapy, which can really build your capacity for tolerating things that you find triggering.
Yeah. I also, we've all kind of grown up in what I would call like the self-help industrial complex. And there's people that want to sell you processes and systems. But, when I started working with Karen a few years ago, what struck me was how much of this stuff is so simple. Breathing, simple. Drinking water, simple. The one thing that we didn't talk about today that I found that someone mentioned in one of our Sunday night work calls was just stepping outside for 10 minutes. I take long walks, like 2-hour walks. And it's like, oh, do I have time to go for a walk? Doesn't matter. Get out, put your shoes on, get outside for 5 to 10 minutes. It can, mileage varies, but it can really calm you and reset you. So there's a lot of little things that calm you in the minute. As far as exposure therapy goes, we talk a lot about that. We didn't get into it today, but I've noticed in our Sunday night calls with some of our members, I'll usually sometimes kind of mention when something that week is getting past my defenses, is getting past my calm defenses. So, and it's always something small and silly and particular, but it'll just drive me nuts. Right now, ICE raids in general really trigger me. People saying that Trump is really, really good and caring and kind and smart. That, for whatever reason, that super triggers me. And I find that if I talk to our group about it and I say, hey, I got to tell you, this week, what's really pushing my button is this. As we found with the naming emotions thing, if you kind of name your triggers and lay them out there, like, oh, this week I really found that this odd little news story just spun me out for a half hour. That goes a long way for me of taking the energy out of it and taking the heat away from it so I can work through it and work past it and move on to the next one. Next week, there'll be something new that completely freaks me out.
I did find that after this last election, I did a lot more of avoiding and distracting myself, which felt good at the moment, but did nothing in the long run in terms of helping me with my job and my energy level and whatever else. It was, I could avoid doing anything that had to do with, the news. I stayed off all social media. I played video games. I read a book and it was fine. But then as soon as I saw one of those stories about ICE or heard something else, it was like nothing had, I hadn't made any progress at all. That all the other stuff was the cake Band-Aid of really, when oh, well, this piece of cake tastes good right now, I'm not going to worry about it in the long run. But, I still eventually had to deal with it.
You had something you said recently, and I'm throwing this out there really vague about that. I think it was one of your articles about there's little things we do that we've grown up doing, bad habits of kind of, that we use to manage our emotions that, like Eric just said, are just a Band-Aid. The next day, it's gotten worse because we pushed it down or we ignored it or we tried to avoid it.
Yeah. I've written a couple articles that address the avoidance issue, and it is a Band-Aid, and it doesn't solve the problem, which is why I'm really an advocate for exposure therapy, like self-directed desensitization rather than avoidance, because avoidance actually makes the problem worse. We teach our brains to find the things we're avoiding to be even more disturbing when we avoid them.
Yeah, if you tell yourself, I'm not going to look under my bed because there's a monster under my bed, you're going to spend the rest of the night thinking about the fact that there's a monster under your bed. Which I was going to speak to Kelly's point here about we use avoidance after dinner so we can sleep. And absolutely, one of the things that if you get really good at this is you manage your day and you say, okay, the best time of day for me to check the news or check social media is this time of day. And after dinner, it's a good idea for me not to engage with that stuff, not to pump myself full of, triggering things so that I can get a good night's sleep and wake up the next morning and whatever time of day, whether you're a morning person or afternoon person, that's when you find out what the best time of day is for you to engage with the hard stuff and face the triggers and face the issues, and when's a good time of day to unplug a little bit and let yourself calm and rest.
And then there's my personal rule, which is I only consume as much media as I absolutely have to be a good activist. And just like, no more.
She and I are very different in that respect.
I was going to say, you mean doom scrolling Reddit at 2 a.m. is not the best thing to help me get to sleep?
Not generally healthy.
Yeah, I tend to use exposure therapy as an excuse to just soak myself in the worst parts of the internet, which is probably not a good long-term strategy. So don't take that to heart. I wanted to go back a little bit just because it's been kind of a thing that I talk to our groups about a lot, who various folks, and everybody's different. Some weeks somebody is completely on top of everything, and the next week they're spun out by something, and then it's somebody else. But one of the things that someone said, a couple weeks ago, like, what are we going to do if they shoot protesters in the street? How would we ever deal with that? I'm like, that's happened. I mean, that's not Kent State happened in our lifetime, and it's one of the points of everything. Amanda's mild takes is someone I really admire. And she says, everything we're freaking out about has happened in the United States to a group, from a president, from an authority. There's nothing new under the sun in terms of what this administration is doing. It's just that it's all rolled up into one guy who's doing it. And it's all happening, especially earlier this year, at a lightning speed. And of course, the third point, which Kelly and others of you were saying in the chat, is and it's happening. It's being noticed and consumed by privileged white people this time around, as opposed to people of color and minorities, and Eric, as you said, LGBTQ, who have been grown up in some cases dealing with this all their lives or hearing about it from their parents or grandparents or ancestors. You know, their reality has been their reality in the United States is something we're all kind of getting a taste of this past 9 months. I don't know what my point was. Anyway, that's all I had.
Yeah.
So, but I do find that perspective helps, again, in terms of you know, hey, and I think one of the things that we have not dug deep into, and I've been always meaning to write something about it, is it takes a balancing act. How much information do I need to take in, and how concerned and worried should I be about it and serious about it, versus what Karen was saying earlier about doom scrolling or catastrophizing, where I'm letting it completely spin me out, and that becomes the thing. You know, what's your activism? Oh, I doom scroll all day and I read all these terrible things. Okay, not judging, but that's not probably the best form of activism.
Yeah.
I've also found, leading this organization now for the last decade, that I have to also remember, when I'm at an event with 2,500 different people, all with different experiences, and not everyone's going to be at the same place mentally at the same time.
Mm.
I mean, you may have just, even something that was announced to a group and it absolutely is freaking you out. You turn to the person next to you and they're not freaking out. And it's not that they don't care. It doesn't bother them, but their mental headspace right at the moment is, I can't afford to freak out about this, or I freaked out 10 minutes ago and now I'm back here. So, and it can happen the other way too, is someone else is freaking out and you're feeling like, I don't think it's that bad. Well, you don't know where they came from. So as activists, we need to both make space for each other, but then make space for ourselves to not be where we think other people think we should be, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely.
And doing this work, you really have to carry a toolkit with you for all those different people in different places at different, especially if you're doing, say, a group call with 10, 15 people, like you just said, 5 of them are going to be in one place, 5 of them are in another place. And so when we do this work and we talk about, hey, get your, work on managing your emotions, and then work on lowering your hostility towards Trump voters, and then work on actually having a conversation. Well, every week I've got people who are in very different parts of that spectrum. And some of them really need emotional support right now. And some of them really need, to practice their skills, their conversational skills. And so you're juggling all the time. And that's just part of, there's not a one size fits all. There's not a, giant club you can use to get everybody in line. Everything has to be flexible and nuanced and reactive to, which is why, most of Smart Politics work is a one-on-one conversation. Not always, but that's the heart of it. Because in a one-on-one conversation, you find out quickly, okay, where's this person at? What do they need from me right now?
And I think the beauty of this movement, is difficult as it can be, the herding cats analogy and all that with progressives, as you mentioned, carrying that toolkit. To me, the beauty of the movement is you don't have to have all the tools, because there's someone else out there who maybe has the tool you need at the moment, but you don't have. Mm-hmm. So be open to letting them lend you their tool. Use their tool if it makes more sense. And I think the Democratic Party could learn the fact that there's a whole bunch of people out there with toolkits that are a lot better. And if we could, if they were willing to step back and let them do the work and support them instead, we'd probably be in a better place.
Yeah, Karen formed this around therapy. And so we have a lot in every call that I do. We always have a lot of people, longtime regulars who are therapists or former therapists, retired therapists. And I'm not a therapist. I lean on them constantly. As soon as something comes up, I'll say, hey, Rhonda, can you speak to that? Because I know you have more experience in that than I do. I want to just quickly, we only have a minute here. Kelly just said, meeting people where they are emotionally is really hard sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you mean like if someone is struggling, or if someone is just not on the same page as you, or
just, and Kelly, I don't even know. I mean, thinking about it from myself, Kelly's been there when I've been screamed at as ED of this organization and thanked for things that I don't think I deserve credit for at the same time. But I will say that in times where someone was very upset and needed to tell me why they were upset and maybe even wanted to blame me or blame the organization or something, if I was able to not reflect that back at them, but take it for a minute and not take it personally, those were the best conversations that I had and some of the best and in terms of progress as an organization and as an individual. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know we're out of time, but you also, a lot of our work is what is the real emotion that's driving this person? If they're a progressive and they're on our side and they're on our team, but they're freaking out at us about something, you kind of have to ask yourself, okay, this is a tough time. We've got a lot, we're all in fight or flight mode. This person is yelling at me or they're upset with me or frustrated with what I'm doing. Are they really frustrated with me right now? Or is it a deeper frustration with the world's on fire? And what do we do about it?
Yeah.
Well, Karen Locke, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Kelly and Michael, for participating.
Yeah, I'm so looking forward to seeing you all in New Orleans. And I know I actually just looked, there's 20 more of you who are watching this who aren't in chat at the moment. I think a lot of people, it's harder to chat when you're on your mobile phone if they're watching from their mobile. But we look forward to seeing you in New Orleans and sharing and moving forward.
Thank you, everyone, so much.
Sounds great. Thank you.
All right, take care.